Well, hello, and welcome back to my desk. We're covering a big one tonight, guys, so grab your tea, grab your blanket, cozy up, because tonight we're covering the Pendergast Series. I have an infographic for me. I will put one on the screen for you when necessary, because in my first attempt to film, I couldn't get the camera to focus right on the paper. So I'm just gonna have a photo and the graphic on the screen. I think that will be the easiest way to do it. We have a lot of books to cover tonight. A lot of them we've already done in previous reviews, so I don't have to go in depth on them. I'm just going to kind of give you a couple points on the books and what I thought were good ones, bad ones to steer away from if you just want to kind of dabble or dip your toe into this kind of character's universe. So that's what we're going to do. I've got my book of notes. I've got my book tree. I've got the last book in the series over here. I thought about pulling out all my hard copies, but I didn't want it to be too cluttered, so I opted to just pull out the one. So I hope that's okay. And then I'm going to insert the book covers on the screen as I talk about them. So I've got this, I've got my tea to keep my throat from seizing up, and we've got this warm candle glow. So let's jump in. Okay, so the first two books in the series were Relic and Reliquary. So the first two books are Relic and Reliquary. And those were books I actually read a long time ago. What I'm not going to do in this book, because there are 22 of them, in this video, because there are 22 books, is I'm not going to read all of the book descriptions for any books that we've already covered. Relic and Reliquary specifically, I read a long time ago. There's nothing in those two books that you need to know to read any of the other books, but they do go together as a set. So just know that. Relic kind of ends and it bleeds right into Reliquary. So it's almost like the worst kind of cliffhanger. It's like two books separated into one, like when they do a part one and a part two of a book in a movie. That is these two books. There's an Australian YouTuber, Mike's Mike, and he did these series of videos on Pretty Little Liars, and it's like an appropriately unhinged recap of Pretty Little Liars. And this book series could have one of those videos about it. It's so crazy, guys. It's such a wild ride. I had so much fun reading it. And so I really hope that this video kind of inspires you to maybe check it out. It becomes this whole world and universe unto itself, where the characters just fan out, and there's not too many of them. Like, it doesn't diverge on too many paths, even though there's a lot of books. There is like a central set of main characters, and I think that's probably going to be a lot of the focus of how I am going to tackle this tonight. Okay, I'm back. I had to pause filming for a second because do you ever find it's like terribly hard sometimes to just find the synopsis for things without getting the whole plot summary and every detail that's in a book or movie? Why can't you just give me like the tagline or what's on the back of the book or the inside book flap? It's so annoying. Anyways, so here we go. Relic. Just days before a massive exhibition opens at the popular New York Museum of Natural History, visitors are being savagely murdered in the museum's dark hallways and secret rooms. Autopsies indicate that the killer cannot be human, but the museum's directors plan to go ahead with a big bash to celebrate the new exhibition in spite of the murders. Museum researcher Margot Green must find out who or what is doing the killing, but can she do it in time to stop a massacre? Okay, so that's Relic. And then part 2 in Reliquary. Hidden beneath Manhattan is a warren of tunnels, sewers, and galleries, mostly forgotten by those who walk the streets above. There lies the ultimate secret of the museum beast. When 2 grotesquely deformed skeletons are found deep in the mud off the Manhattan shoreline, museum curator Margot Green is called to aid in the investigation. Margot must once again team up with Police Lieutenant D'Agosta and FBI agent Pendergast, as well as the brilliant Dr. Frog, to try and solve the puzzle. The trail soon leads deep underground, where they will face the awakening of a slumbering nightmare. Now, reading those, it kind of doesn't sound as much like they bleed together as they do. Make no mistake, do not read Reliquary before having read Relic. You have to read that one first, or it just won't make sense. Or there will be a lot missing, and you'll be like, WTF is going on, you know? Okay, so that's those 2. We'll just get those out of the way. Then we have the Cabinet of Curiosities. So this is the 3rd book in the series overall, but it's kind of the first book that sets a tone for a ton of the other ones down the line. So this is the cover. I'll put it here on the screen. This was the first audiobook I read in the series, or listened to, I guess, not technically read. Okay, what was I saying? The Cabinet of Curiosities. In an ancient tunnel underneath New York City, a charnel house is discovered. Inside are 36 bodies, all murdered and mutilated more than a century ago. While FBI agent Pendergast investigates the old crimes, identical killings start to terrorize the city. The nightmare has begun again. Okay, so that's that one. And it sets the tone for pretty much the rest of the story, besides the few independent books in the series that are one-offs. this one is the jumping off point for kind of the rest of the storylines. Kind of sets the dominoes in motion, you know? So this one was the first book I read after my reviews ended with The Witch Hunter. I was going to read Good Omens, and then I was like, that wasn't working out for me. And I was able to get a free 1 month of Audible. And I was like, well, you know what? I'm going to see if this book's on here, and I'm going to read it. So that was it. I listened to it on Audible, and it was actually a great experience. The only other audiobooks I had ever listened to were the Harry Potter series, of which I have read so many times. It actually was a really fun experience because it turned out that there were two narrators, Renee Aubergenois and Scott Brigg, and they have different styles, and so it was kind of interesting to be able to witness two different types of narration of the same characters in the same story. If you do decide to listen to any of these on Audible, just be aware that there are a lot of them duplicate versions. So there's an abridged version and then the full-length version. So just watch for like the timestamps of like how long they are. I think the longest full-length one was like 10 hours. They're usually more like 14, 15, 16 hours, I think. And then the shorter ones were like 4, 5, and 6. So just make sure you're not accidentally buying the abridged version, because I did accidentally do that with the next book, which was Still Life with Crows. But luckily Audible did let me exchange it for the unabridged version. That's something to note about Audible specifically, is if you buy a book with an Audible credit, then you can exchange it. But if you buy it outright, like for just the cost of the book, if it's on sale and it's worth like less than what a credit would be and you buy it, you can't then just exchange that book. It's non-refundable. So if you buy it with a credit, then you can exchange it for free if you don't like the book. But if you don't, then you can't. So just fair warning. I didn't know that, and I almost got stung by it. Luckily, their customer service was great about it, because I just wanted to like change it for the full length of the book. It wasn't like I just wanted my money back or something. Anyways, Cabinet of Curiosities. Original notes that I had were good, interesting. Origin of Constance adds a lot to the books later in the series. So I remember in my reviews of the other books that I read, Verses for the Dead, Crooked River, Bloodless, The Cabinet of Dr. Lang, saying there was this character of Constance, and she was kind of like this mysterious, like, ghost of a character. We didn't know her background, and if I had read earlier books in the series, specifically where her origin comes from is the Cabinet of Curiosities. We don't see a lot of her in that specific book as like the full-fledged character we see later in the series, but to really understand her character and the storylines of later books, you have to read this one. So just know that. It was a good book. I did like listening to it, so I can recommend that, as even if you just want to listen to it as a standalone, because it's the first book in a main series of 4 books in the series. And that's kind of something we're going to see, is there are like mini series within the series of this whole thing. So yeah, that was Cabinet of Curiosities, tick that one off. The next one was Still Life with Crows. Now, in my 2024 recap video, I did single out Still Life with Crows as my favorite book in this series that I read this year, and I stand by that. It was just unique, and I don't know if it was because it was like a departure from the other books that I had read in the series. It was kind of this, I guess technically the second independent story that I read within the series, but it just kind of took the character of Pendergast out of the complications of all of those other characters and put him in a scenario by himself and let the story unfold of the book that way. So it's a lot less complicated. It's on its own. If you just want to dabble into this character and this story, Still Life with Crows on its own is a good book. So you can read that on its own and just walk away if you decide this isn't for you. The little bullet points I have here for this book was good story, bizarre, unexpected. It's an independent story, unsettling, and unfortunately sad. It was, I don't want to like give anything away in the book, but just the reveal and like what you learn what happened, and it's just kind of like, oh, that's unfortunate and sad. So something in this series is they don't shy away from like unsettling topics. Like, don't be surprised by the weird shit that happens. Like, weird shit. If I could describe this series in like 5 words, I don't know. Bizarre, weird, complicated, complex family drama. I know that's technically more than 5 words, but like it's so, things get so complicated. Okay, so I'll read to you the synopsis of Still Life with Crows so you can know if that's something that will tickle your fancy. A small town in Kansas, a series of grisly murders, and the depraved, hidden evil within. Enter the new American Gothic. Medicine Creek, Kansas, in a town where nothing changes, where Main Street is a 2-block stretch of old and dusty businesses, a peculiar and ghastly murder has taken place. The body mutilated and placed carefully in an elaborate tableau in the middle of the endless cornfields. Now, cool-eyed and smooth FBI agent Pendergast arrives to discover a community he must turn inside out to find the killer, who can only be one of them. So, does that sound like something you'd be interested in? There was a lot of kind of like the rural setting. There was ties to Native American elements, just small town drama and politics. It introduces a running character in the series of Corey Swanson. This is where she originates from, and she pops up kind of now and again throughout the series. Yeah. So that is Still Life with Crows, book 4 in the series. I feel like I should have numbered these. So now we enter what is the first mini trilogy. So this is not mini trilogy, it's a mini series. It's a trilogy within the overall structure of the books. And this specific trilogy is subnamed the Diogenes trilogy. And this is where we are introduced to the character of Diogenes Pendergast, who is fabulous. I will say this character, whenever he pops up, I am just ready for it. I am like, oh, what is going to happen? You have no idea what's going to happen, but it's just great. The name, you're like, who? The Pendergast family has this kind of naming tradition of strange names. So the main character in the books, FBI Special Agent Pendergast, his name is Aloysius, and his brother's name is Diogenes, and then they have a great aunt Cornelia and a bunch of other people. Cornelia's kind of the normal name in the family tree, but their family tree, it gets quite expansive, and it's just really fascinating. They're kind of like this, there's a tendency towards madness that runs in their family line, and that's kind of this background element of a lot of the story. It's like ever present, this kind of threat of this elusive Pendergast madness gene. And we get our first glimpse of that and delve deep into it in the Diogenes trilogy. So the first book in the Diogenes trilogy, book 5 in the series, is Brimstone. So insert a picture of Brimstone, and I will read you the synopsis. Behind the gates of a fabulous Hamptons estate, FBI Special Agent Pendergast comes upon the carnage of a gruesome crime, one that recalls the legendary horrors that befell those who make a Faustian pact with the devil. Surrounded by the choking stench of brimstone, the smoldering remains of art critic Jeremy Grove are found in a locked, barricaded attic next to a hoofprint singed into the floorboards. Unable to resist a case that defies all but supernatural logic, Pendergast reunites with police officers Vincent Augusta and Laura Hayward to search for a more earthly explanation, but their investigation soon takes them from the luxury estates of Long Island and penthouses of New York City to the crumbling, legend-shrouded castles of the Italian countryside, where 30 years ago, 4 men conjured up something unspeakable. So that is the first book in the series, Brimstone. The little bullet point I had about this one was religion, selfishness, corruption, greed, and punishment. Those are the themes in Brimstone. Okay, so check that one off. The next one is Dance of Death. Insert photo, Dance of Death. Again, these books have kind of various covers, so just watch for that if you're searching them out. The description on this book is a little strange, but I'll read it to you. It says, 2 brothers, one a top FBI agent, the other a brilliant, twisted criminal. An undying hatred between them, now a perfect crime, and the ultimate challenge. Stop me if you can. There's like a weird quote at the beginning of this. So it's like, praised as a ruthless descendant of Holmes by Publishers Weekly. Agent Pendergast has become one of crime fiction's most endearing characters. His greatest enemy is one who has stalked him all his life, his cunning and diabolical brother Diogenes, and Diogenes has thrown down the gauntlet. Now, several of the people closest to Pendergast are viciously murdered, and Pendergast is framed for the deeds. On the run from federal authorities, with only the help of his old friend, NYPD Lieutenant Vincent Augusta, Pendergast must stop his brother, But how can he stop a man that is his intellectual equal, one who has had 20 years to plan the world's most horrendous crime? So this is where things start to get weird. And I would say they kind of start to get weird in Brimstone, if they aren't already weird before that. But when you throw Diogenes into the mix, shit gets weird. Like, it just goes off the rails. The level of detail and effort and time and the elaborateness to which this man goes is just unparalleled. Okay, so the little note I had for Dance of Death was jealousy, revenge, conspiracy, and Pendergast family history. So those are the kind of tags I would apply to that book. It starts to open up the Pendergast family history for you to kind of dip your toe in, but you don't have all the information just yet. So don't go jump into conclusions. So we'll check that one off, and then we'll move on to the final book in the Diogenes trilogy, which was Book of the Dead. An FBI agent rotting away in a high-security prison for a murder he did not commit. His brilliant, psychotic brother about to perpetrate a horrific crime. A young woman with an extraordinary past on the edge of a violent breakdown. An ancient tomb with an enigmatic curse about to be unveiled at a celebrity-studded New York gala. The New York Museum of Natural History receives their pilfered gem collection back, ground down to dust. Diogenes, the psychotic killer who stole them in Dance of Death, is throwing down the gauntlet to both the city and to his brother, FBI agent Pendergast, who is currently incarcerated in a maximum security prison. To quell the PR nightmare of the gem fiasco, the museum decides to open the tomb of Synop, an astounding Egyptian temple. It was a popular museum exhibit till the 1930s, when it was quietly closed. But when the tomb is unsealed in preparation for its gala reopening, the killings and whispers of an ancient curse begin again, and the catastrophic opening itself sets the stage for a final battle between the two brothers, an epic clash from which only one will emerge alive. Okay, so it sounds like a lot, and it is a lot. These three books, specifically Dance of Death and Book of the Dead, were just kind of this onslaught of stuff happening all the time, and just kind of being like, what is happening? Why is this happening? This is so weird. This is so bizarre. So yeah, I would say this trilogy within the series is kind of like sets this tone and level of just weird eccentricity that just gets leveled up more and more, and as you move through the series, you're going to be asking yourself, oh, why, and stop, and no, and oh my god. But you know, it is what it is. What did I write down for this one? Unfinished business, puzzling, deception, desperate chaos, disturbing, more in-depth of the Pendergast history, intrigued to see what happens next. So I will say it does kind of, you're like, okay, where can things go from here? that's the question I was asking myself, even though I knew because I had read books ahead in the series. I'm just like, how do we get from here to here? Like, what happens? And so I remember seeing in some of my early reviews that you could read the books out of context, and that was it was just a mistake on my part. There are books in which you can read independently, and the next two are those. But the next book, The Wheel of Darkness, does kind of tie back to the Diogenes trilogy. So if you haven't read those and then you jump into Wheel of Darkness, you're kind of going to be like, what's going on? Like, you won't have all of the context for the events that take place in that book, even though technically the main storyline has nothing to do with it. It's the stuff that's going on in the periphery and the background of the characters' lives, not the specific events, like the whodunit aspect of this book doesn't tie into that, but the stuff that's going on in the characters' lives and their relationships with each other does tie back into the Diogenes trilogy. So you just need to be aware of that. Okay, now I will read to you the synopsis for The Wheel of Darkness. Lest into the Dharma you unchain an uncleanness of evil and pain, and darkness about darkness wheel, the agogen you must not unseal. A remote monastery in Tibet, an ancient morning, a mysterious stolen artifact with the power to wreak vengeance upon the world. Will Pendergast be able to solve the riddle and shine light onto mystery and darkness? Pendergast has taken Constance Green on a whirlwind grand tour, hoping to give her closure to recent unpleasant events, as well as a sense of the world that she's missed. They head to Tibet, where Pendergast intensively trained in martial arts and spiritual studies at a remote monastery. They learn that a rare and dangerous artifact the monks have been guarding for generations has been mysteriously stolen. Pendergast agrees to take up the search. The trail leads him and Constance to the maiden voyage of the Britannia, the world's largest and most luxurious passenger liner, and to an Atlantic crossing fraught with terror. So, the main storyline there is one of its own. But as you can kind of see from the synopsis, there is stuff going on in the background that relates to the previous books. So I would say that while this one is technically doesn't belong in any of the trilogies or quadrilogies, etc., I wouldn't read it on its own. So when I wrote this for the C notes on previous page, I wrote down standalone story, technically, Eastern medicine monks, ancient artifact that could destroy the world goes missing. Ocean liner, Titanic ghost ship vibes. Kind of weak overall, feels mostly like filler and set up for future books. Isn't gripping in a way that would make you want to read more of the series. Don't start here. So not just is it a bit weak overall, but just because of the context you kind of need to really interpret everything that's going on with the characters, definitely don't start with Wheel of Darkness. It's not a jumping off point to get into this character or this series. So we will cross that one off the list and move forward to Cemetery Dance. Now, Cemetery Dance is, like Still Life with Crows, a fully independent story. You don't need the context of before or the context of after to read this book. Let me insert a photo for you here, and I'll read you the synopsis of this book. Pendergast, the world's most enigmatic FBI special agent, returns to New York City to investigate a murderous cult. William Smithback, a New York Times reporter, and his wife, Nora Kelly, a Museum of Natural History archaeologist, are brutally attacked in their apartment on Manhattan's Upper West Side. Eyewitnesses claim, and the security camera confirms, that the assailant was their strange, sinister neighbor, a man who, by all reports, was already dead and buried weeks earlier. While Captain Laura Hayward leads the official investigation, Pendergast and Lieutenant Vincent D'Agosta undertake their own private and decidedly unorthodox quest for the truth. Their serpentine journey takes them to an enclave of Manhattan they never imagined could exist, a secretive, reclusive cult of Obeah and Voodoo, which no outsiders have ever survived. So, that's this one. Let me see what I had. Did I write anything down for this one? Another standalone. It was good. Unusual, creepy, twisty and turny, secretive, cult, mysterious, magic, zombies, ? Tension, suspicious though, that says. Overall good, plus would recommend. So if you're looking for a standalone book in the series, this is a good one. It does have characters in it that were introduced previously in the story, but that's absolutely fine. It doesn't. You could read this book just on its own. It's a good story. It's interesting. You're kind of like, what the heck, you know? It's got this kind of mysterious, magic, voodoo-y element to it. And you get a little bit of kind of Pendergast background. The Pendergast family is originally from New Orleans, so they're very southern. It's a whole thing in the books. So overall, good book, would recommend. Tick. Now we're moving into, I think this is a good break point. So I'm going to break this video into two, at least. And because the next 3 books is another trilogy, the Helen trilogy. So we'll start off the next video in the Helen trilogy. So thank you for joining me here for this video. And if I end up putting these all in one video, then this is going to seem super weird. But that I've said this. But I really think it's going to be too long. So we'll break here, we'll come back, we'll start out with Helen, and yeah, so thanks for joining me here, and I'll see you in the next one, guys. Thanks so much.